Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Philip Lee, one of Ireland's fastest growing corporate law firms and expert advisors at the heart of the Dublin and London startup, fintech, and crypto communities. Eoin, Fitzgerald, and I are back with the last Money Talk segment of 2021 with our review of our top stories for 2021. In looking back through our show notes to find our top stories, the one thing I noticed is how fast things moved in 2021, and they're only getting faster. From GameStop and Wallstreetbets to Roblox and Coinbase going public, to SPACs and to Charlie Munger on Bitcoin, to BNPL with Klarna, Square, and Afterpay, to our spinning of the fintech flywheel, to CryptoPunks, stablecoins, the metaverse, Techstars in Ireland and Web3, and finally, Eoin's new hope for Monzo. We've got it covered one last time for 2021. All right here on Money Never Sleeps. Hey, Eoin.
Hey, Pete.
You're back.
I'm back. Long time no.
I'm back too.
We're both back together. That's it.
It's amazing. It's been since October.
I know. It's flown by. Lots going on.
I know. I was just looking back at all the stories for the year that we're going to talk about tonight and was realizing that the last Money Talks episode we did was in October, and the sands shifted at that point, didn't they?
They did indeed. Look, there's loads going on. You obviously got a big piece of work going on with Techstars and your investment thesis, which I'm slowly making my way through, but enjoying it.
It was only like 5 pages, dude.
I have a couple other things on at the moment. If I get through one page a week, I'm doing well.
Awesome. Well, listen, what we're going to do tonight is that we are going to talk through our stories of the year, right? Given that this will be our last recorded conversation before the end of the year, that we thought we'd go back through the stories that we really thought were impactful for the year 2021 and showcase some of the highlights here, right?
Yeah.
So going all the way back to January for number one, this was the one that we talked about quite a lot, and it wasn't just on the air, it was also off the air because it was a back and forth. It was the biggest story going on in January with GameStop or GME and everything going on with GameStop stock, the subreddit group, Wallstreetbets, all of that. And you said at the time, or I think this was me paraphrasing things together into the show notes, what does it mean for the future of publicly traded equities when you have groups like Wallstreetbets who can turn against you and drive the stock up or down and trigger a short squeeze where hedge funds lose billions? That is a bold statement.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's playing out. Even if you fast forward to recently with obviously Elon Musk putting out on Twitter saying, oh, will I sell some of my shares? Like, you know, because we talked about it at the time, I remember, in terms of where does the regulation and the regulator play in this space? Because, you know, stock is being manipulated just in a different way than your kind of typical insider trading piece. So how is that regulated? How is that prevented from having an impact if a group, you know, decides to turn against you? Especially when, like, you'd be used to seeing it with maybe hedge funds or kind of activist investors, but when it's in the case of GameStop, the general public just deciding kind of on a whim almost to, you know, move the stock in a particular direction. What does that mean? And then how does that impact on crypto and some of the, you know, 24/7 kind of markets and stuff that we're starting to see? What does that mean? So I haven't seen anything over the course of the rest of the year that's made me think, you know, this is being addressed or that this problem has gone away.
Could it have happened in the 80s?
Could it have happened in the 80s? I think the only way something like this would have happened maybe in the 80s would have been with large funds kind of collaborating together or, you know, privately, you know.
But that's illegal.
Exactly. That's illegal. So it's a version of the same thing going on. It's just when you have, you know, retail investors doing it, you can't crack down on them in the same way.
Yeah. Blue Horseshoe loves Endicott Steel.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. That's illegal.
You know, that was illegal. This is not. And it's that you had people representing. Now, obviously, we're turning, you know, the story of Wall Street and Bud Fox and Gordon Gekko into real life here. But we know that some of this obviously did happen in the 80s, that you had individuals that were representing bigger pools of capital that were colluding to move stock prices up and down. Now, you have individuals this year, in 40 years later, that all have the ability to almost quasi-represent larger pools of capital by the fact that technology allows people to move together, to move quickly, and have some oomph in the market. So there's no real difference here.
No, WallStreetBets has 2 million plus members. You can't crack down on them individually. But I think like the thing that comes out of it, and it, even as it relates to the likes of Elon Musk, is it's the community, it's the kind of fan, it's this everyone buys into whatever they're saying. So WallStreetBets, they all bandied together and went a particular way with GameStop. And they did it with Hertz and they did it with a few others. Elon Musk tweets and something and everyone piles on based on what he's saying, good, bad, or indifferent. And it's the ability of individuals or groups to be able to manipulate stock or move things in a particular direction.
Yeah, I would never propose trying to regulate this or stop this, because this is individuals exercising their freedom and power as individuals to do this.
It's just that it's like publicly on a whim, and it's funny / scary to watch at the same time.
Yeah, it's sentiment and lots of different things being developed now to capture that sentiment and to move it. I've seen some pretty interesting things this year.
No, we discussed this one in particular with Andrew Mullaney in Premind, and that was a fascinating chat in relation to this specifically, because like what did the GameStop saga kind of show? Well, it showed like in blaring lights that the market is not efficient. It's the price and all of the variables and the fundamentals are not priced into the price of the stock. It is whatever it is. It's whatever it might be the next day. It can move on a whim, on a whim of a group of people. Irrespective, like Hertz went through the roof after it announced bankruptcy.
It's crazy. I mean, because I've been so crypto the last few months, right? And that I've been talking to people a lot about the price of tokens, of cryptocurrency tokens out there in the market, and how in any token there's an element of what I've been calling heat, right? And that heat is just reflective of how much of that price is sentiment. Now Charlie Munger would look at this and say it's 100% sentiment, right? Yep. But we won't get into that now. We might talk about it later. But if you look at a stock price, there's going to be an element of that is heat, that is sentiment, that is emotion fueled markets driving things up and down. And whether that's institutional emotion or it is individual emotion with a bunch of people that have all banded together, it's the stock markets ain't what they used to be. And I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing in the sense that I think was it like 13 million new customers got added across Robinhood and a few of the other trading platforms in like Q1. That's a good thing. But the impact then and getting more people into active investing is a good thing. We obviously talked to Shane Monks O'Byrne in Aikido Finance about giving people control over their own kind of investing and managing their own pension portfolios and things like that. That's all a positive. You can't necessarily say that people are making good choices.
No. I was talking to my wife about this because we were talking about the prices of crypto versus the prices of publicly traded equities. And she's like, it's all gambling anyway. I said, it's not. It's not. I said, if you are making informed investment decisions on the basis of qualitative information, that is investing. And if it's quantitative information, that's technical analysis. She's like, it's all gambling.
She's not wrong. Call it what you want.
Yeah, I know. And listen, speaking of moving markets and speaking of getting individuals together and institutions together to move valuations, I think this year was definitely probably carrying over from 2020, but into the beginning part of 2021 with the year of the SPAC, the Special Purpose Acquisition Corporation with Chamath Palihapitiya. I've said that so many times this year. I think I finally
rolls off the tongue.
So this is where a company is formed purely for the purposes of acquiring another company with investors behind the acquiring company, all pooling money together and taking that company public, that shell corporation, basically what the SPAC is, taking it public and then buying a private company. And it's basically bringing a private company public before, at an earlier stage generally than what would be expected. Or it's just, it's an interesting vehicle used for a company that everybody would expect to be ready for it. So that has pushed some of these fintech valuations through the roof. And this was back in February. And this was from the Fintech Blueprint long take newsletter from Lex Sokolin that we've quoted a number of times this year, where fintech valuation multiples with SPACs. And what you said at the time is, where's the real upside with a traditional bank? When you look at some of the fintechs, they've got far more upside as they grow and build out functionality because they're software companies. It's the ability to adapt and pivot that banks don't have. I was nodding my head to that very much with what you said.
Yeah, and you know what, the SPAC thing is interesting because I saw a chart going around on Twitter about a week or two ago where it actually showed that pretty much all of the SPACs, I think, were underwater from their price that they went to market on. But you know, it was interesting between them and direct listings because it was just a new version of getting companies public, which is good to see. It's innovation in that space. But again, I think a lot of those companies, like you said, the fintech companies obviously have the upside, and it's reflected in their valuations. But those particular companies, I think the majority of them were going too early. You know,
Absolutely.
they were going on the back of a strong kind of COVID bounce. A lot of them, you know, especially the kind of challenger bank type, neobank type companies that would have went to market through the SPACs, and the revenue or the kind of business model just wasn't there yet. It wasn't mature enough.
It's like if the money's there, take it.
Yeah,
Go
and
with
I
it.
can't argue with that, but you'll probably end up seeing a lot of those companies just merging or being acquired on the back of it. In some ways, maybe it's easier because they're publicly listed then.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wonder if when the Plaid Visa deal happened or was first originally agreed, if the SPAC process had been that much more matured at that point,
Yeah.
that if Plaid might have said, well, listen, you know, rather than selling out for $5 billion to Visa, even before that opportunity came up, why didn't they just go public?
Yeah.
Right. I said at the time, when you get out of the old school banking model based on paper and old pipes and plumbing and fax machines and into a digital environment with real-time data and APIs, you're creating so many more monetization opportunities for what you're doing and for the data you're generating. There's just far more upside than with traditional banks. So I am a maximalist when it comes to the opportunity to get rid of all this legacy technology and in financial institutions and replace that with digital technology. Now that's a lot easier said than done. And there's so many more different ideas on how that may all unfold over the next 20 to 30 years that we're not going to get into tonight. But I've seen more and more of that now in DeFi, decentralized finance, and this concept of composability and these Lego blocks of finance. And seeing, for example, this kind of play out a little bit in Starling, with Starling having their Starling as a service, banking as a service offering this year that allows them to say, listen, we built such great technology. Now we're going to use that as allow others to use it as Lego blocks. Now, it's not the same way as it happens in DeFi, where you can take an existing DeFi utility and just basically fork it, right? And build on top of it and make it your own. Now that's, you know, and because it's all open source, and that Starling's not doing that, but it's, you know, still somewhat related. I just think there's so much more upside here, and that we haven't even seen the story start to unfold yet.
Yeah.
We're still, you know, first inning of all this stuff. Next one that I really liked was back in March, the Roblox direct listing.
Yep.
Back then, Simon Taylor said everything is fintech, but I said, is everything crypto? Roblox developers can get paid in Robux and are now making a living off of this. You can convert Robux back into fiat in a game with 36 million average users, up from 13 million in 2019, right? And now we're seeing that play out, obviously, over the summer with Axie Infinity and Play to Earn, where you're earning money. You're buying NFTs to earn crypto, playing a video game, right? So we talked about this at the time. You said in the metaverse, products will be developed purely online in a gaming setting, and lots of money will be flowing towards that. When you have a Roblox with 32 million users every day, the opportunity to build new products has massive potential, right? So what some companies out there are unlocking in the space, like Forte, they just did a big $700 million round in the last month, and they're basically opening up these closed network games like Roblox and Fortnite, and brand new games that haven't been created yet that ordinarily would have gone into closed network. And they're saying we can allow you to open these up and bring crypto into these games. This is just such a massive, massive opportunity. Thinking back on this now, knowing what I know after what I've been involved with for the last 3 months with Techstars, it's like, yeah, that was an important big step back in March in bringing that to the world, you know?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned at the time, it was like, to me, it was the best kind of representation of what crypto could be. You know, when you have your 32 million daily users using a digital currency within a particular setting, and the widespread kind of adoption, the easy adoption of it, that to me was there's your kind of bellwether or whatever for what crypto could be or how it could be used.
There's 80 million crypto wallets around the world right now. Now, crypto wallets is not an indicator of crypto users. I think it's closer to 300 million crypto users. But imagine that, that 32 million in Roblox, each one of those players having a wallet. And you do that times 10 games, man, we're going to move towards this tipping point of having more crypto users on this planet than non-users of crypto pretty quickly if we're issuing a wallet for all video game players.
And I think an important, because I know we talked about it in a different setting. It was in relation to the generational shift in kind of banks and fintechs and customer base. And I think actually this could be these sort of things could be a tipping point, because the average age of 13 to 15 year olds or whatever are playing Roblox, or kind of 8 to 15 year olds. And they're used to the digital wallet, digital currency kind of environment. And then they're coming out of that and growing up and getting their first bank account. They're not going to go down a traditional route. They'll completely bypass the traditional type of bank, because this is what they've grown up on. This is what they've been playing every day. This is what they're used to. The metaverse, the neobanks, the Squares of the world, whatever, Cash Apps, that sort of thing. So a whole generation will skip the traditional banking piece.
Yeah, it's that rite of passage of going to open your first bank account. Yeah. You just won't need to.
Don't need to.
Like, my daughter, like your kids, have, a Revolut card, and that one's connected to my account, and she may eventually open her own Revolut card and bank account, but it's probably going to be pretty seamless at that point. We'll just say, listen, we'll get you your own card now and your own account, your own app on your own phone. But okay, great. We'll order that, and we'll just move the money over, and she won't even know the difference.
Probably happens seamlessly that Revolut will know that she turns 18, and you and her will get told individually, oh, you've now graduated to whatever account.
Yeah.
Here's a new card or whatever.
Yeah. And, with how much I talk to her about cryptocurrency these days, I'm sure that's going to be a part of it as well. We were actually talking on the way home tonight. I was on a call just before you got back in the car. I was talking to Aiden Finn, shout out to Aiden, about the number of crypto players coming into Ireland over the last year. Yeah. There's been a bunch, with Kraken, with Binance, Coinbase being the OG in Ireland in crypto. And then, Crypto.com are here. A couple other players are coming in. Gemini are here. Revolut obviously have a crypto offering. And, I didn't say all this to her, but she got just into the car while I was saying to Aiden, what are we going to call this? And he's like, what do you mean? And like, well, we got Silicon Valley, we got Silicon Docs, we got Crypto Valley in Zug in Switzerland. What are we going to call this? The Crypto Crack, right? CRAIC. And my daughter liked that. Yeah. So I don't suggest we start referring to it as that. But we'll see. Anyway, listen, speaking of Coinbase, that was the next big story. Coinbase going public. That was an awful lot of fun. I'm going to pull a Chamath here. Coinbase is a publicly traded company. I am on the board, even though it's a board of a subsidiary. I'm going to say nothing. What do you think?
Joe, you had an enjoyable day using your app and getting the notifications. I remember that story. That was a good day. Stressful day for you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. I did eventually get through it.
We talked about it at the time, and I said it, and I was like, to me, the biggest thing about it was that this was a company that was only 9 years old. So it 10 to 12 years for crypto going mainstream, and the fact that traditional banks should be kicking themselves about the fact that this was able to happen on their watch. They could see this coming, and here you are now with a multi-billion revenue company in the crypto space, owning the market to a degree, and watching it publicly happen and not doing anything about it.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I did a thing for Evershed Sutherland's for Deborah Hutton on just institutional adoption of crypto at a virtual event that she held in the last couple of weeks. Evershed Sutherland are a law firm here in Ireland. And when I got through to the point of talking about the impact on traditional asset managers from the rise of crypto, she said, Pete, what do you suggest that asset managers do? And I said, well, listen, if you're already thinking about starting to allocate into crypto, I would recommend that anybody on your team that has responsibility for that you just need to go out and you need to buy some crypto. It doesn't need to be a huge amount of money. You just need to get your head around the experience. Yeah. She's like, what's the best way to do that? And I'm like, thanks for the meatball. Right. And I said, listen, I'm entirely biased, but the best way to go out and do that is with a Coinbase account. Yeah. It's the user's friendly app out there, and an easiest way to buy crypto. I said, listen, I'm sorry, I'm biased. But no, that was a big deal. It was awesome to see all that happen. It was, like I said, it was very surreal watching all that happen, being involved with Coinbase for it's nearly 3 years now that I've been with them on that board. Hey everyone, this is Pete. Let me tell you about the folks at Philip Lee. A few years ago, I was at my first venture capital industry dinner in Dublin, and honestly, I felt a bit lost. I bumped into Andrew Tizali, one of the partners at Philip Lee, He bought me a pint and introduced me to the team, and they took me under their wing. That take you under their wing approach has been what I've heard consistently from fintech and crypto startups who I know have worked with Philip Lee in Dublin and London to help them wrap the right legal framework around their business, fundraising, and regulatory needs. And I can't recommend them enough. Get in touch with the team at philiplee.ie or on moneyneversleeps.ie/Philip Lee to learn more. The other kind of, it wasn't even related to that, but we started talking about BNPL this year, buy now, pay later, and Klarna storming ahead of their rivals across Europe and the US, counting 16 million new users in 2020. And this came out at the beginning of May. And you said, listen, whatever happens with the regulation of BNPL, well, it happens. And the question is, how do Klarna move into other product offerings? How do they move upstream or downstream? Because this is just point of sale lending. How does Klarna sell you more products? And we saw this later on in the year with Square. Later on in the year, we had Square's crossover in July, where they created a new Bitcoin platform for financial services, which was kind of it's a big deal. They've now renamed themselves Block. And back in July, they announced that they were going to take on incumbents with business banking accounts. So that was kind of their first, not their first, but it was, they've had their institutional offering or their merchant offering with the payment terminals. They have Square Cash, which was an individual. And the business banking account was going a little bit deeper with their merchant customers to say, listen, not only can we support all your payments, we can actually have a business banking account for you. And then the big news was in August was when Square's huge move into BNPL with Afterpay, which is the Australian BNPL provider. They shelled out $29 billion. And this is where you and I really got into flywheels.
Yep.
Okay. And we started talking significantly about how, obviously we have the Disney flywheel, we got the Amazon flywheel, but Square with Afterpay now have this flywheel, which is really spinning right now. And that momentum is generated by bringing businesses to individuals and bringing individuals to businesses. And this real B2B and B2C bridge they've managed to form and start spinning through this acquisition of Afterpay.
Yeah.
By BNPL. So those two together, I thought were really big news.
Yeah.
To me, the Square was almost, and what Square's done in the year 2021 almost feels to me like my story of the year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's up there because they've made so many different moves. Because when we talked about Klarna, we talked about, okay, well, what are they going to do next? It's all well and good to have, point of sale lending. Great. What do you do next? Like Square came along and drew the roadmap there. They're connecting everybody through Cash App. Then they're slotting in the business banking accounts, and now they're slotting in the BNPL, and then bringing them all together under one roof and connecting everybody. And I think you have it there with Angela Strange from A16Z on the fintech side. She had said about, being able to bring on board new customers at lower cost acquisition. Her example was buy a new TV with Afterpay and open up a Cash App. And that's it. It's making it seamless for people to start using multiple kind of Square products.
Yeah.
So they've made all of the right moves as far as I'm concerned. Like you can see, it's funny because obviously Jack Dorsey gets criticized, and obviously he stepped down now as CEO of Twitter, but he has been criticized for having his eye off the ball on Twitter as CEO for the last number of years, whereas on Square it looks like he's hitting home runs left, right and center. All of the moves that are being made are really smart moves for bringing the kind of their community customers together.
If you were the CEO of both Twitter and Square, Owen, which one would you pick if you had to pick one?
I'd pick Square every day of the week.
Yeah.
I think there's, Twitter is a nice business. There's a limited kind of further monetization opportunity, whereas Square has so many opportunities.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of companies, the Web3 space, talk about decentralized social media and the opportunity to monetize things a lot better when it is decentralized rather than ad driven. So, I'm not going to call it now that Twitter and Facebook and these Web2 social media platforms are going to, disappear. Maybe I am calling it, but trying to get your head around building a decentralized social media platform and the cost of it and actually pulling that off is extremely, extremely difficult. Yeah. So I was talking to Joey Krug about this from Pantera Capital last month, and he's like, dude, forget about it, And I know a couple we interviewed Mihai Alizi a few years ago from Akasha World, and that was their big mission, what they're doing. And I haven't checked up on them recently, but he might be a good guy for me to check in
Yeah.
with to see how things are going. Right. But I love the Square story. And it feels like when we're talking about flywheels, and I actually managed to pull this fintech flywheel component into the thesis that I wrote for Techstars for investing in the Web3 space.
I picked up on that. Yep.
Yeah.
Loved it.
And that, it felt like when we were talking about it with Square, I think we looked at the Afterpay docs to convince the board of Square or vice versa to do this deal. And in there featured Afterpay's flywheel, or the beginnings of a flywheel. So you bring these all together, and obviously it all makes a lot of sense. But the point is that it felt very theoretical at that point in time. That, with Square, you're just slotting in this new player. Do you have a flywheel yet? No. It takes a while to develop that. It's really got to develop around doing one thing really well. Disney's one thing really well is storytelling. Amazon's doing one thing really well is low prices. What is Square's? And that I can't put a finger on that yet. So I think there's a long way to go, but it feels like we're always saying there's a long way to go, because there is.
Yeah, but I think, we often talk about ecosystems, and we talk about it with, banking as a service and challenger banks, but actually what has Square done? It's pieced together the ecosystem in a number of different ways, so that you as the customer, because we talked about it when we were saying about the business banking and connecting, customers directly with businesses. And you're matching up the merchants directly with me and you, and I can pay you for something through my Cash App without ever having to go near a bank. And then all of a sudden I can take out a point of sale lending without ever having to go near the bank. They really are creating that ecosystem piece, and it could just be that their USP is that they're putting all the right pieces together.
Yeah, totally. What I came up with on the bringing this flywheel concept into Web3. What I said when I wrote the thesis was that I love flywheels where one part of a project's value proposition feeds the next part. And that part feeds the next one, building a self-sustaining and momentum-fueled driver of network value. I really saw this as a great example of you can gather a user base, and that's easier said than done in Web3, right? And people talk about building up a community on Twitter, on Discord. I've now got deep into Discord, and I see how that works. And it's a great way to do it, but you need someone managing that all the time. But you get that community going, you build a couple of big super fans. Those super fans then lead to 10 super fans. Those 10 super fans lead to 100 people that say, I love your product. I want to get behind it. I need that product. And I want to tell everybody about it. And once you can do that, the composability of DeFi and these Lego blocks means that you can plug into other projects, and you start cross-pollinating between your users and another project's users, because you have leveraged their technology in order to build something new for your customers. And then other developers want to build on top of your platform. So bringing individuals to businesses and businesses to individuals, right? Even though the Web3 space, you refer to businesses as projects, but it's the same idea. And I'm really, really glad that we went so deep into flywheels over the summer and really questioning it with each other and pinging it back and forth and saying, do we have something here? Because it allowed me to really think deeply about it when I was trying to identify this thesis. And I think we said back then that, this would eventually become a thesis. Yeah. But it, now that I'm looking at companies and looking at projects in Web3, it's like building this down into a criteria and asking them the right questions to try to see, does this have the potential to turn into a flywheel?
Well, that's probably a good segue into another big story then this year, which was obviously the Techstars Accelerator Program.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kicked off the application period. That kicked off way back in September, but this is the Launch Pool Web3 Techstars Accelerator Program. So this is Techstars' first entry into Ireland. And someone said to me today, Pete, why did you guys decide to do this in Ireland? And I said, there's a few reasons. One, Techstars are doubling down on Europe, and Dublin is becoming an even more important part of the global blockchain ecosystem, the European blockchain ecosystem, and seeing all the crypto players come in here over the last 3 years, that there is just a big buzz of activity going on, and a lot more than what you would expect for a country of 5 million people. Second, London had got a bit crowded, right? There's so much going on in London. It was like, can we bring this program to an alternate venue to say, you know what? Let's see how much we can weave this into the fabric of the Irish startup ecosystem. And, by making that commitment that, listen, we really want Irish companies to apply to this program. We've got a week left to go, want to see more come in, and really pleased to be able to get this done here in Ireland. Now, it's only just begun. The 13-week program will kick off in April. We've got another, like I said, week to go on applications, and then we'll be doing the selection process during January and into early February and making the offers. And then we're going to be kicking off the program in April. We've decided it's going to be a hybrid program because of one, COVID, but because of two, the virtual nature of Web3. Some of these teams have never met in person.
Yeah.
Never mind meet us in person. Never mind travel from wherever they are in the world to Ireland for 13 weeks. And we'd love to have them all do that. And at some point in the future, that may happen. But we're going to do the first 2 weeks in Ireland, the last 2 weeks in Ireland. So getting people orientated, getting people into the program, and then demo day with the investors at the end of the program.
Makes sense.
We're going to do it that way. So this is all about Web3. This is about where we've got this long tail of finance that in my past, really, that I've always had this big ambition to digitalize finance, and it did it in bits and pieces when I was in the corporate financial world, and then started helping other companies do that since 2016 in fintech and blockchain and crypto and distributed ledger technologies, digital assets on a broader basis. And so that's one part of it, that I can't just let this 20 years of experience disappear and off into the ether, right? The second part of it is that since 2018, what I got really excited about is a lot of the stuff we talked about on the show, Owen, is that when you blend culture into this, when you blend the fabric of humanity into the digital age, and you start getting excited about things like seeing the Star Trek holodeck come to life, right? And Ready Player One, and having read that at the same time that I was thinking about Techstars, and just seeing how fast the space moves and how many opportunities there are to bring in some just awesome founding teams that have some incredibly big ideas about what they can do in this space. And it's saying, not just, hey, can you digitalize what's come before us, but how can you actually have that drive some momentum forward to how financial services will operate in the year 2045. And never mind financial services, how will people be spending their free time with media, with arts, with gaming, in the metaverse, with VR goggles on, with VR goggles off? I think we're going to see a lot of augmented reality type things happen first before we get to true VR, which is going to take, will it take to the year 2045? I mean, that's what Ready Player One is saying. And that's my new Bible. So, we'll see. But yeah, obviously I get quite excited about this because this is the most continuous sentences that I've said all night.
But no, Joe, I'm actually really excited to see how it plays out, even from the sidelines, with some bit of insight through you, because you're far further down, like way further down the rabbit hole in the crypto blockchain space than I would be. And I'm still, I wouldn't say skeptical. I still think there's a lot of noise, and I'm waiting to see how some of these things play out. And I actually think that this program and some of the companies, and getting to see some of those companies firsthand, will be a great way to understand, what that future will look like, and where the thinking is on it, and where the opportunities are. So I'm really looking forward to it starting, and kind of being loosely involved and watching to see what's going on with the companies and stuff. So looking forward to that kicking off.
Yeah. Well, you're an investor, right? You want to come to Demo Day?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, no, there is a lot of fluff in this space. There is an absolute tons of it. And when you think back to 2017 and the ICO bubble, and 80% of them were frauds or failures. If you look at a lot of the space, the things happening in the wider space where people say, well, I'm going to take a project and I'm going to throw an NFT on top of that. I'm going to call it Web3. No, I'm sorry. There needs to be a token that is central to your value proposition. And it's not even a token, it's an incentivization mechanism to say, here's how we're going to get users to want to use our product, and how we're going to get other projects to want to build on it. And that's, again, getting back to some of this flywheel stuff. So yeah, awful lot of fluff to rake out. I think that will come out of the wash. Yeah. If there is a major downturn in the crypto markets, that I think we'll see that happen. If we see it continue to steam along, it's going to take longer for that fluff to fall out. If it moves sideways, well, obviously we'll be somewhere in the middle. But no, it's been an amazing experience so far. Yeah. And we've only just begun. What I say to the founders is the 13-week program, that's just the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're stuck with me for life. So
I know one I wanted to mention, we have it down there. We talked about Tom Blomfeld leaving Monzo. Actually, I wanted to mention, given it was our last one of the year, I've been incredibly harsh on Monzo in terms of their business and
It's been fun.
expecting them to be the one challenger bank that falls over. But I have to say that their recent raise that they did, Simon Taylor covered it in his fintech food there on December 12th, really kind of put me back in my place in terms of how they're doing as a business. But in fairness, it's the first time I've really seen like the detail as to how they're doing and the progress. So I suppose my chance to publicly say maybe I wasn't exactly right on Monzo. I still think they might be the one that'll be acquired because I don't see them growing outside of the UK. But like, you know, we're talking about they raised at a $4.5 billion valuation, which is 12 months after they did a down round, 1.2 billion during the pandemic, and there was the issue there about them being a going concern. But they're adding more than 100,000 customers per month, and they've recently passed 5 million customers. They're spending £2 per active user to run their infrastructure, which is that's huge.
That's what I honed in on. And that was it Simon that pointed that you're reading from Simon.
Yeah,
Simon, thank you. Simon Taylor.
It's brilliant review, but really kind of focusing on the key areas like operating income is up 71%, deposits are up to 3.1 billion, you know, but other things when we were talking about the positives with Monzo, it was that, you know, their customers are real fans, you know, and they remain number one for customer satisfaction and their second most loved brand in the UK overall, not just in financial services. You know, that's huge. And like, you know, you keep your customers on that basis. And then what are they saying? Customers using Monzo as their main bank is now up to 18%.
Okay.
You know, so it's trending upwards. It's far more positive than I would have given them credit for. Interesting to see how it will play out for them, but obviously things are moving in the right direction anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about tipping points, and you know, the tipping point of crypto, like I mentioned earlier, and you know, is there a tipping point for a fintech or for any business where you have your customer acquisition costs so low, you have customers that love your product, so your lifetime value is high, and that eventually just flips. Right.
Yeah.
When I say it flips, I don't necessarily mean the balance sheet or the income statement. I mean the momentum.
Yeah.
And you start just on a new trajectory. So, you know, Simon pointed out, like you said, the stats that you just read out there on the, you know, the cost basis of this being so low.
Yeah.
He also did a nice plug for 11FS in there and saying, when you got some of the same DNA from Monzo in this business, wouldn't you want to tap into that? And he's talking about 11FS and what they built with Foundry and Ventures, which is pretty cool stuff. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Eoin, when you said, will this still just be UK? Right. They've decided not to do the US. Now, a lot of folks have decided not to do the US. N26 said they're not doing the US. Others have pulled back. Others have said we're not doing the UK. So I'm wondering where Revolut's going to go with the US. Are they going to continue pushing along?
Do you know what? It's highlighting that it's far more difficult than people anticipated to go into multiple markets with these types of solutions, you know, for lots of different reasons. But, you know, who's going to be the one that really kind of crosses the board? Like Tinkoff hasn't left Russia, really. You know, New Bank is a big story this year. Obviously, it's focused entirely in, I suppose, Brazil and Latin America. You know, obviously Cash App in the US, but maybe there's no reason. You know, if Monzo has 5 million customers, it could probably pinch a few more from some of the high street banks. Maybe that's enough.
I think it comes back to people. You know, people use fintech and people have certain needs, and those needs vary from one country and one culture to the next. And how much money a fintech is willing to spend to acquire those customers and to please those customers, what may have worked in one country won't work in another. And that whole what they want to spend, what a fintech may want to spend in a new country is already a reflection of their existing cost base and the approach they've taken to build their business. So I always point to the interchange. A fintech business that was built on interchange of 0.3% in Europe and how they support that versus a business built on interchange in the US of 1.7 to 2%. It's just night and day. And I think there's a big thing that goes into that because
there's also the fact that, like, you know, each market now has its own version of a Monzo. Like, you really now have to differentiate on product. How can a Monzo compete with a Cash App? It can't. You know,
you can't.
So why would they try? What's it going to cost them to acquire those customers? We're not seeing the partnerships. Like, we were talking about Square and Afterpay and stuff like that, but we're not seeing the partnerships. Why isn't Monzo entering a market by rolling out its product to the customers of a Chime or whoever, in the US. Where are those opportunities? It's like, oh no, let's spend loads of money on marketing and try get new customers. That's kind of surprising that there's been none of that really in the kind of challenger bank.
Yeah. Some of that hit home for me earlier this year. I was talking to someone about their model for getting people to conferences and events. And it's like, well, how much money do I want to spend on Twitter acquiring those people to attend, or Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever I'm going to pay for the ads, or Google? How much do I want to spend on that? And how much can I actually raise in sponsorship from people who want to sponsor this conference or this event? And that's it. He's like, if I can go out and raise more from sponsorship, I can get more people to attend. And that's what the sponsors want. So it's like, well, I can go out and do more Twitter ads. I can get more users to download my app, but that's cost of acquisition. And that is, the number one thing that is used as a metric for how successful a fintech business may be. Obviously, not without lifetime value and monthly recurring revenue being, a key part of that, but it's absolutely critical. So if you have to go way out of your way to do things a new way in a new market, that we have to pay way too much to acquire those customers without a view of what that tipping point may be, it's difficult. Some of the other things that I liked, like I said earlier, had a lot of fun quoting Lex Sokolin from the FinTech Blueprint. And one more thing I wanted to say was to quote him again, that he put into one of his newsletters from earlier this year about the metaverse, where he said, there are some truly strange things going on in 2021. We say this constantly and try to find the right words to explain it. And yet every week it feels that we're at some precipice, like something has been unleashed that almost nobody else can see, but is profoundly reformatting the nature of the world. The tentacles flash into view occasionally, but we mistake them for shadows, or even worse, hallucinations of the insane.
He has a way with words. He's brilliant.
I've been listening to his podcast a lot recently.
Yeah,
so,
too.
He's really good. He's brilliant. So that to me kind of sums up the year. Some of this, we kind of see some of this stuff happening behind the scenes a little bit, but sometimes it does just seem like hallucinations of the insane. I love Charlie Munger, talking about Bitcoin. It's disgusting, and then, Binance, we talked a lot about that, but then the storm subsided. And now they've set up 3 entities in Ireland, and this is the news cycle just turning. We talked through stablecoins, we talked through CryptoPunks. It was a very diverse year, I would say.
Yeah. Do you know what I enjoyed the most in terms of my understanding and pushing myself when we talked about rundles, recurring revenue bundles, and flywheels?
Yeah.
So that to me, that was the real kind of takeaway. And shout out to Scott Galloway for getting me sending me down the rabbit hole on rundles. But in terms of new business models, it really it was the one I've enjoyed the most and thought the most about, those kind of areas.
Absolutely. So we might be able to form some type of educational business on this podcasting thing.
Yep.
Right. And say, what is the best way for you to learn? Well, go take a look at what happened in an area of the world, of a vertical, a segment that you enjoy, and talk about it with one of your pals and try to challenge each other and figure out what this all really means.
Yeah.
And you're going to take something away from it. And if you can do that in public in front of, thousands of people, then, even better. Right. All right.
That's it. We're signing off for this year.
We are signing off for 2021. Big thanks to everybody, all of our listeners, for keeping it push us along. You're the reason we keep doing this every week. I didn't think I was going to be able to keep doing this every week back in October, but managed to.
It worked out well.
To kill a few birds with one stone.
Yeah, I've obviously been tied up for the last few weeks, a new baby, which is great. But then you've had a particular direction you've been going with it on a Techstars side, so it's worked out well. Kind of, that particular piece. But I'm looking forward now to getting back in from January to, me in particular, being on regularly and learning far more about the kind of stuff you're working on, and then going in an interesting direction with it as well.
Absolutely. A big thanks to our new sponsor, Philip Lee, as well. Yep. So they've been great with us so far. So thank you to Andrew Zali. So cool. All right.
Enjoy Christmas, Pete. And the New Year.
You too, pal. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone out there.
That's it. Money never sleeps, pal.
Money never sleeps, pal. Adios.
Adios.
That does it for this week, folks, and you can learn more about the stories we covered in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie. So check us out online and subscribe to our Money Never Sleeps newsletter as well. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early-stage startup investor and advisor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3. If you'd like to talk to me about your business, drop me a line on info@moneyneversleeps.ie. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.